The morning does not begin with an alarm, nor with the gentle rise of sunshine through soft curtains. Instead, it begins in darkness. A cold, biting darkness that seeps through every stone in your small, damp hut. The walls, built by rough hands generations ago, hold the night's chill like they were crafted to preserve discomfort. You stir beneath a woolen blanket, thin and worn by years of use, its itchy surface clinging to your skin, offering little reprieve from the cold that surrounds you. There is no fireplace roaring back to life, no thermostat to adjust. The fire, once your only source of heat, has long since faded into ashy silence. You can still smell the remnants of smoke in the air, a sharp, bitter scent that mixes with damp straw and earth. As you open your eyes, your breath clouds before you, misting into the frozen air. It's morning, not by light, but by the aching in your bones and the stirring sounds outside. The roof is low, made of thatch and supported by timber that creaks softly with the temperature's shift. Above you, cobwebs hang like delicate curtains, untouched and silent witnesses to countless restless nights. You lie there, motionless for a while, listening. The world around you is not silent. You hear distant hooves clacking on frost-hardened dirt, a rooster crowing with hollow echo, the grunt of pigs in a pen not far away. It is the start of another day. But still, you don't move. Why would you? The first few seconds of waking are the most difficult. Your fingers are stiff, your legs heavy. Sleep didn't refresh you, it merely delayed the return of pain. You turn slowly, feeling the blanket fall away from your shoulder, and instantly regret it. Cold air lashes at your skin. It bites, not like snow, but like an unkind whisper of winter trapped indoors. The hut is shared, not by choice, but by necessity. You live here with others, your family, perhaps, or fellow laborers. No walls divide your space, no doors offer peace. There's only one room, a corner for sleeping, a corner for cooking, a bucket in another for the rest of your human needs. Nothing is private. Even your thoughts feel exposed. You shift your legs over the edge of the straw bed. The floor is packed earth, worn hard by footsteps, and colder than the air. As your bare feet touch it, you wince. You wish for shoes, for socks, for anything soft. But luxury is not part of your world. There is only what is necessary. Your joints creak as you stand. You feel each movement deeply, knees stiff, back sore, muscles weary before the labor even begins. This is not age, but the result of daily toil. You are young by years, old by burden. You stretch your arms overhead and shiver. Your breath forms again in the air, reminding you, the cold is inescapable. You glance at the small hearth where last night's fire once burned. A few embers glow dimly, barely alive. You kneel, coaxing them back to life, adding kindling with hands that barely obey. Smoke curls upward, struggling to rise through the narrow chimney. The flame flickers weakly, offering a little light, but not much heat. Outside, the village begins to stir. Voices murmur in the distance, carts roll slowly, animals bleat and cluck. Life returns to this frozen morning like a reluctant river thawing from ice. But inside, it is still just you, fighting the weight of another day. Sleeping on straw with rats beneath the bed. The bed, if you could call it that, is a bundle of straw laid across wooden planks or, in poorer homes, simply on the floor. The straw rustles with each movement, brittle and uneven, poking at your skin through the thin fabric of your sleeping clothes. You slept in your tunic, the same one you'll wear today, not because you forgot to change, but because it's all you have. You scratch absent-mindedly at your arm. The straw holds more than just discomfort. It houses fleas and mites. You can feel their small, crawling steps across your skin in the quiet of night. You tell yourself it's just your imagination. But it never is. And then there are the rats. You heard them, last night, scratching at the walls, scurrying under the straw. Sometimes, you wake to find small droppings near your bed, or worse, chewed holes in your bread ration. They are not pets, nor occasional intruders. They are constant residents, and you their unwilling roommate. You once woke to feel something brush your leg. It was small, fast, gone in an instant. but it left a trail of fear behind, a lingering discomfort that never quite goes away. Even now, as you reach for your boots, you shake one out first, checking for anything hidden inside. Once was enough. The hut is dark, still lit only by the weak flame. The corners are shrouded in shadow. You've learned not to fear the dark, not because it's safe, but because you must. You walk carefully, avoiding the damp patches on the floor where leaks from last night's rain have pooled. Your breath remains visible. Your hands tremble. No windows, no privacy, only survival. There are no windows in your home. Only narrow slits in the wall, perhaps covered with cloth or wooden shutters to keep out the cold. Light comes slowly, seeping through the gaps like it's afraid to enter. Your world is painted in browns, grays, and the soft orange of firelight. You can hear everything. The man beside you snores softly. A child stirs. Someone coughs in the far corner, a deep, wet sound that tells of illness and no cure. You've heard that cough for weeks. There is no medicine, no doctor, just prayers and time. You move quietly, not to disturb them, though privacy is already broken. In this space, every breath is shared, every sound heard. You've learned to dress without shame, to sleep without silence, to live without solitude. And there is no escape. Even outside, life offers no hiding. The village is small, and every person knows your name, your voice, your face. Secrets do not last long here. Whispers spread quickly. There is no anonymity, only the constant pressure of presence. You dress slowly. The tunic is cold. It clings to your skin, stiff from yesterday's sweat. You pull on trousers, rough and patched. Then boots, cracked at the heel. Each piece tells the story of days before. Each hole, each stain, a memory of work, of struggle. You tie your belt and exhale. The hearth still flickers faintly. The light outside grows stronger. A rooster crows again. It is morning in medieval times. And you are still alive. But already, the day feels too long. 2. The harsh reality of medieval breakfast. The fire in the hearth barely clings to life, and the cold hasn't left your bones, yet your stomach groans. Hunger is the first sensation that truly awakens you. It gnaws gently, then with growing impatience, as your body reminds you that yesterday's meal was long ago and not enough. You shuffle toward the table, if you can call it that, a low, uneven wooden plank supported by stones. There's no cloth, no plates, no silverware. Only 2 wooden bowls, carved by hand, worn smooth by years of use. Your fingers run across their edges as you sit down, feeling every ridge like a map of time. You sit cross-legged on the dirt floor. There's no chair, no cushion. Comfort isn't expected. You wait for your portion without speaking. The others do the same. No one says much in the morning. Words take energy. Energy takes food. The smell of boiled grain fills the room. It is not sweet. It is not pleasant. It is the smell of barley or oats cooked in water and nothing else. No salt, no butter, no milk. The pot bubbles over the fire, set upon a blackened stone. The woman stirring it, your mother, sister, or perhaps you yourself, moves slowly, methodically. Her hands are red and cracked from washing clothes in cold river water the day before. She ladles out the porridge. It lands with a dull, wet sound in each bowl. A scoop for you, a scoop for her, another for whoever else is present. The portions are equal, but small. Always small. Food is scarce, and there are more mouths than there is grain. You stare at the pale mush in front of you. It steams gently, fogging the air between you and the others. This is your breakfast. Again. And again. Day after day. You lift the bowl to your lips. There is no spoon. You drink it slowly, letting the grain slide past your tongue, chewing only when you find a lump too solid to swallow. The texture is coarse. Some of it is burnt from sticking to the bottom of the pot, and its bitterness surprises you. But it is food, and you are grateful. Next to the porridge, someone passes a loaf of bread. It is hard, baked 2, maybe 3 days ago. You knock on it with your knuckles. It sounds like wood. Still, you tear off a piece. Your teeth strain as you chew. It crumbles dry in your mouth. You wash it down with ale. Not by choice. There is no clean water. Wells are often contaminated, and boiling water takes time and fuel. So you drink weak ale, brewed low in alcohol but enough to kill some of the water's dangers. It's sour, thin, and warm. A child across the room sips it too. There are no age restrictions here. Everyone drinks ale. Even the smallest ones. You look around at the others. No one is satisfied. The meal quiets the ache, but only for a short time. No one asks for more. There isn't any. You eat in silence. The crackling fire offers a soft rhythm. Outside, morning continues to break, unnoticed. A chicken clucks just beyond the door. You hear the thump of hooves and the creak of a cart's wheel. Life is beginning in the village, but inside your home, time seems to stretch. Breakfast is not a moment of pleasure or connection. It is a function. A need. Nothing more. Once the bowls are empty, they are set aside without cleaning. There is no running water, no kitchen sink. Washing will wait until midday, maybe evening. Dishes are wiped out with a cloth or a strip of bread, or simply left as they are. The less you touch cold water, the better. It numbs fingers already sore from yesterday's work. No one leaves the table smiling. Bellies are fuller, but not filled. You rise slowly, stiff again, and begin the quiet rituals of preparing for the day. Gathering tools, putting on an extra layer, checking the weather through the door. The porridge sits heavy in your gut. There's no sugar rush, no caffeine to spark your thoughts. You will not feel awake, only less asleep. But in medieval times, that is enough. You are fed, barely. You are upright, for now. And the day calls. You step outside, heart steady, body hungry once more. 3. A walk through muddy, dangerous streets. The door creaks as you push it open. A gust of sharp air greets you. Outside, the world is gray and brown, draped in the damp of morning fog. You step into the chill, and the uneven ground beneath your feet reminds you where you are. Not on cobblestone, not on pavement, but on a dirt path beaten hard by centuries of footsteps, hooves, and wooden cartwheels. Your first step sinks slightly into the muck. The second is no better. Overnight rain has turned the street to sludge. You try to find a drier path near the edge, but the thatch eaves above constantly drip water. You resign yourself to the mud, lifting your hem above the ankle. The smells come next. Not all at once, they rise in waves. First, the tang of livestock. Somewhere nearby, pigs squeal and grunt. Then the acrid stench of waste, both human and animal, tossed into the open drains that run alongside the houses. Finally, smoke, heavy and sharp, from dozens of cook fires and forges, clinging to the fog like oil in water. You pull your cloak closer. Around you, the village begins to stir. Merchants open wooden shutters and sweep their thresholds. Children dart out of doorways barefoot, shouting. Dogs bark from alleys, and geese waddle past you, flapping with sudden panic. Someone above shouts a warning, too late. A splash follows. You flinch as a bucket of grey water spills onto the ground just feet from you. Chamber pot waste. Commonplace. You glance up but see no face in the window. The shutters swing closed. The road narrows between buildings, timber frames leaning in as if the town itself might collapse inward. Roofs almost touch, blocking what little sky there is. You shuffle forward, careful not to step in anything fresh. Each footfall is a gamble. Each breath, a mix of earth and rot. People pass you, close and quick. There's no room to pause. A woman with a basket pushes by, eyes forward. A man with a sack of onions nods once and keeps moving. No greetings. No smiles. Time is short, and there is work to be done. You find yourself disoriented. There are no signs. No directions. Just endless bends and junctions that all look the same. You try to retrace your steps but realize you've never truly learned the layout of the village. There's no map to study, no landmark that stands out among the soot and mud. A cart creaks behind you, pulled by a donkey with ribs showing through its skin. The driver calls out sharply. You move aside, sinking deeper into the soft mud. The wheel throws a splash across your boots. You don't bother wiping it off. At the village center, a crude square opens up. Stalls are being assembled. Crates set down. Goods laid out. Turnips, onions, salted fish, coarse cloth, and iron nails, the daily offerings of survival. No luxury here. Just function. Just trade. The market is loud. Sellers shout, beckon, argue. Coins jingle. Chickens squawk from under crates. Somewhere, a lute plays, out of tune and barely heard. You consider looking for something to eat, but you remember your coin pouch, empty. Barter is common, but you have nothing to trade. You turn away. Hunger follows you like a shadow. You try another path, searching for familiar ground. A group of boys run past, knocking your arm. You stagger, nearly falling. They don't look back. You brush yourself off and continue. A man ahead turns suddenly and barks a curse at someone. His hand is on a blade at his waist. You freeze. But the moment passes. The other man walks away. Tension remains like static in the air. You pass a well. Women are gathered, filling heavy buckets. They stare at you, not hostile, not welcoming. Just watching. You nod slightly. One turns her back. You keep moving. The day is growing older. The sun, still behind clouds, casts a pale, indifferent light. Your legs ache. Your feet are wet. You've gone nowhere, and everywhere. The streets have no end, no center, no peace. You hear church bells toll in the distance. Noon. Time to return, if you can find your way. You take another turn, hoping it leads home. Another splash. Another stare. Another gust of smoke. You are not lost, but you are never quite found either. 4. The burden of labor for common folk. The sun is now fully risen, though its light offers little warmth. A faint golden hue spills across rooftops, but the chill of the morning lingers, clinging to your skin like a damp sheet. The mud on your boots has dried into thick crusts, and your fingers, despite being clenched in fists, remain stiff and pale. You begin the walk to the fields, your breath still visible in the air. There are no morning exercises, no preparation rituals beyond securing your belt, checking your hands, and bracing for the pain of another day. You carry with you simple tools, a wooden hoe, a dull sickle, perhaps a battered bucket or a yoke for carrying water. These are not owned but borrowed or handed down. You are a worker, not a holder of property. The path to the fields is long, worn by generations of feet. You recognize the dips and grooves beneath your boots. Each turn brings the scent of earth and livestock, the smoke from fires, the clatter of tools. You pass others along the way, men and women with sun-worn faces, children already hard at work. No one greets you cheerfully. There are nods, brief glances, the language of effort. Your task today is weeding, or perhaps hauling stones, clearing brush, fixing fences. It doesn't matter. The work is the same in the end. Unending, unrewarded, unremarked upon. You bend, lift, pull, sweat. The hours stretch. Time is marked not by clocks, but by aches. Every movement becomes a meditation in repetition. The rhythm of your labor syncs with the sound of wind in the trees, the creak of your muscles, the quiet grunts of others working near you. The soil is stubborn and hard. Stones catch your fingers. Roots snap reluctantly. You feel each strain in your forearms. Your tunic clings to your back, damp from exertion and stained from days before. Flies swarm around your head, attracted by sweat and the scent of livestock in the fields. You wave them away, but they always return. By midday, your back protests every motion. You shift from one foot to the other, adjusting your grip on the handle of your tool. There's no sitting, no clean place to rest. You take a moment against a fence post. Your hands are blistered. You spit into your palm and keep going. The sun has climbed higher, yet it offers little comfort. Instead, it sharpens every shadow, every glare off a metal tool. Lunch is not a break. It is a pause. You return to the edge of the field and retrieve a small cloth bundle. Dark bread, perhaps a sliver of cheese, a turnip if you're lucky. You eat while standing. or crouched in shade. No one speaks much during meals. Talking wastes time. Chewing is hard enough. You savor every crumb, not because it tastes good, but because it means you can go on a little longer. A bell tolls from the church. You look up. The sun is high, but the clouds have thickened. The air smells of rain. You know what that means. More mud. Harder hauling. Heavier steps. The animals grow restless too, sensing the shift in weather. A dog howls distantly. Birds scatter from trees. It's as if even nature is preparing to struggle. The afternoon continues. You trade places with another worker, now helping to repair a thatched roof. You climb slowly, balancing with hands that tremble. The straw is wet, and the wood beneath it splinters easily. You hold your breath as you swing the hammer, gently, cautiously, so it doesn't shatter the beam. Each nail driven is a moment of focus. Each success, a quiet victory. But the risks remain. One slip could mean a fall, and there are no doctors waiting. Later, you're tasked with carrying water from the well. The yoke digs into your shoulders. The buckets sway, splashing with every uneven step. The road back is uphill, and by the time you arrive, your legs shake from fatigue. You barely have the strength to set the buckets down. By the time evening approaches, your body is screaming. You've been standing, crouching, lifting, and reaching for what feels like days. But this is only the first. And tomorrow will be the same. Blisters have broken open. Your joints throb. You've forgotten what it means to not hurt. You walk back home with the others. No celebration. No songs. Just tired silence. Some trail behind with bandaged fingers. Others limp. Children are quiet, holding their tools like burdens. In town, you pass the manor house, tall, stone, clean. You pause, just for a moment. You wonder what it would be like to sit in that chair, to eat from that table, to rest without worry. But the wonder is brief. The manor door shuts, and so does the thought. Their windows glow with candlelight already. Someone laughs behind the thick walls. The sound feels like it belongs to another world. You arrive back at your hut as the sun sinks below the hills. The fire is out. You light it again with trembling hands. Sparks rise slowly, casting shadows across the walls. The room fills with a soft orange hue. But the heat doesn't reach you. You remove your boots, one at a time. Your feet are blistered, soaked. You peel off the outer tunic. Sweat and dirt have soaked through every layer. Your muscles twitch involuntarily. You don't speak. No one in the hut does. You simply nod. You survived another day. You lower yourself to the straw mat, but your mind doesn't rest. It drifts through the labor, every moment carved into memory by pain. You know what comes next. Sleep, cold, and then, again, the burden. You stare at the ceiling, made of rough wood and shadow. You listen to the breathing around you, the cracking of the fire, the howl of wind outside. Your eyes remain open longer than you'd like. But exhaustion eventually pulls you under. You lie still, listening to the breath of others, and wonder how much longer your body will hold. 5. The fear of medieval justice and punishment. Rumors as crimes, living in fear of words. One careless word could unravel your life. In a world where suspicion is stronger than truth, even a glance or a whisper could lead to accusation. Silence becomes your armor. You learn to speak less, to blend in, to avoid being noticed. A villager says you walked too far from town. Someone else saw you by the woods. They ask questions. The steward hears. The priest frowns. And now, your name is whispered in corners. No proof, just words. But that's all it takes. A rumor, once released, is impossible to chase down. You try to explain, but no one listens. You're already guilty in their minds. You walk through the market and feel every stare. You return home and lock the door, but the fear is already inside. The Lord's rule is law, no trial, just power. There is no jury, no argument, no appeal. The Lord's word is final. His steward enforces it. You may be punished for a crooked look, or for owning more than your neighbor. You may not even know the reason. His guards knock on your door. You stand in the square, waiting to be told what you've done. It doesn't matter. They've already decided. The Lord watches from his balcony. You do not speak his name. You kneel, not from guilt, but from fear. You wonder what rule you've broken. But there are no books to read, no laws to learn. Only warnings passed down in whispers. And punishments handed down in silence. Public punishment as spectacle and warning. When someone is punished, everyone watches. Not out of cruelty, but out of fear. The crowd is forced to gather. Children peek between sleeves. Elders avert their eyes. The guilty are tied to posts or forced into stocks. The sentence is delivered. Aloud. Then the act begins. A whip strikes. A stone is thrown. A rope tightens. No one speaks. The silence grows louder than screams. And when it ends, no one asks questions. No one offers help. You return to your chores with the memory still in your mind. It becomes a part of your silence. A part of your caution. The stocks, the whip, and the gallows tree. You've passed the stocks 1,000 times. They sit in the town square, as normal as the market stall or the well. You've seen neighbors tied into them, heads and hands locked in place. You've watched the village children throw stones. You've heard the whips snap echo off stone walls. And you know the tree. The tall one with thick branches. You don't speak of it, but you know. Its shadow reaches far. And when you pass it, you don't look up. You keep walking. You keep breathing. And hope it never calls your name. Church and crown. Justice by faith and throne. The church watches you as closely as the Lord does. Priests preach of obedience. Of purity. Of sins that hide in thought as well as deed. You bow your head. You kneel during prayer. You confess sins you've not committed, because to remain silent is suspicious. The line between faith and law blurs. Refusing to attend Mass may draw notice. Speaking out against a sermon may bring judgment. You fear the steward's eyes. But the priest's silence feels worse. His approval, or his lack of it, can seal your fate. Accused and abandoned, guilt without proof. Once suspicion touches you, it spreads like a shadow. Neighbors stop waving. Friends stop visiting. The woman who once shared bread avoids your eyes. Your children are whispered about. You are no longer part of the village. You are a danger to it. And no one wants to stand near danger. No evidence is needed. Only fear. You are told not to worry, but you do. Because the silence speaks louder than anything else. The dangers of superstition and suspicion. A failed harvest. A strange illness. A dog that barks at night. These are signs to some. To others, they are omens. And always, they must have a cause. Someone is always to blame. A quiet man. A widow with herbs. A child born during a storm. The villagers talk. The priest watches. The steward listens. And you realize that reason holds little power here. Only fear does. You hide your books. You speak less. You pray more. Just in case. Witch hunts and mass hysteria. Sometimes fear grows too big. It leaps from one house to another. One accusation becomes 5. A neighbor claims they saw candles burning too late. Another says they smelled something strange. A woman is dragged into the square. Then another. They are questioned. They are searched. They are tested. And the crowd watches. Not all believe, but none protest. Because to doubt is to risk suspicion. And no one wants to be the next name spoken. Peasants, thieves, and the price of hunger. You took an apple. You needed it. Your child was sick. But the market keeper noticed. He told the guard. You were brought to the square. A fine was announced. More than you own. You are offered a choice. Lose a hand, or serve the Lord unpaid. You choose work. The days are long. The food is less. But your hand remains. For now. Others were not as lucky. A loaf of bread. A wool tunic. A bit of salted meat. These are the reasons men have bled. The executioner's blade. A town's final sentence. He wears a hood. He speaks little. He is called only when the crime is final. When guilt has been declared, not proven. You've seen him once. Long coat, heavy boots, axe across his back. He stands tall beside the condemned. He does not pause. He does not ask. The village watches. And no one breathes until it's done. Then he leaves. And everyone tries to forget. Until the next time. 6. Life in the shadows of lords and kings. The castle on the hill, power you'll never reach. You see it every day. The castle, perched above the village, a shape cut from stone and shadow, looking down as if the very land itself bends to its will. No road leads directly there for commoners. You walk the muddy streets below, carrying tools, burdens, hunger, and always looking up. The castle glows at night, not with warmth, but with power. You wonder what the fires inside feel like. You imagine tapestries, golden goblets, hot bread, warm beds. But you will never touch them. You were not born to enter that world. That world does not see you. You live beneath banners you did not choose. You give half your crop to a man you've never spoken to. And yet, he decides what justice means. He decides who marries, who builds, who eats. Your hands grow hard from the soil. His stay soft in silk. He rides past sometimes, cloaked and clean, his steed trained to walk proud. You bow your head. You don't speak. You don't meet his eyes. At festivals, the castle sends scraps. Ale barrels left over from the lord's table. Sometimes bread that has gone stale. The villagers call it a gift. But it never feels like kindness. It feels like being reminded of what you are not. They feast, then fast. You fast, then scrape. When a child is born, you owe a tax. When a parent dies, you owe a tax. When you marry, when you harvest, when you sell a goat, there is a tax. And all of it climbs that hill. The Lord does not descend. His servants collect. And the coin vanishes behind stone gates. You once climbed halfway up the road, as a child, before being caught. A guard turned you back with a scowl and a hand on his sword. He didn't strike you, but you remember his tone, not your place. That memory stays with you. The castle became a boundary not just of stone, but of spirit. A place not forbidden, but unreachable. Your place is in the shadow, in the fields, in the cold. Still, some nights, you look up and dream. Of music you can't hear. Of food you can't name. Of comfort you'll never know. And then you wake. And dig. And bow. Tax collectors and the weight of obligation. They arrive without warning. Cloaked in dark wool, with scrolls in hand and guards at their side. The taxmen of the Lord are not kind, nor cruel. They are distant. You do not speak to them, only answer. They ask what you've harvested, what livestock you've kept, what coins you've earned. And you answer, even if the truth hurts. Because a lie costs more. The taxes are many. A portion of your wheat. A share of your eggs. A fee for using the Lord's roads. A toll for selling at market. Every part of your life has a price, and every price is owed. You work through storms and sickness, but the tax still comes. Even in famine, you must pay. If your harvest is poor, you borrow. If you cannot borrow, you give what little you have. Your neighbor gave his daughter's dowry 1 year. Another sold his ox. One man gave the cloak from his back. They say the taxes keep the land safe, that they support the soldiers and roads. But you have never walked a smooth road. You have never seen a soldier defend your field. The collector does not stay long. He ticks boxes. He seals his scroll. He gives no thanks. And then he's gone, riding back toward the manor, his cart filled with grain and coin. The village exhales, but not in relief. Only in delay. For he will return. You once watched a man beg for mercy. His wife had just died. He had no grain, no coin, no goods to offer. He dropped to his knees. The collector turned away. The guards did not. The man was taken to the manor stables. Indentured, they called it. He would work off his debt in silence. There are stories of those who refused to pay. They do not live in the village anymore. Some fled. Others vanished. One was found in the river. No one speaks his name. You plan your life around the tax. Not your joy. Not your future, but the obligation. The weight that presses down each season. You do not dream of wealth. You only dream of enough. And some years, even that feels distant. Tithes, duties, and the Lord's favor. Beyond taxes, there are tithes. Offerings owed to the church, expected without question. A tenth of your crop, a portion of your flock, a candle for every Sunday you miss. If the Lord's tax leaves you empty, the tithe leaves you bare. But you give it, because not giving means something worse: suspicion, shame, damnation. Duties, too, are expected. A portion of your year spent laboring on land not yours. Helping build walls you will never live behind. Repairing bridges you will not cross. Sometimes, a man is called to serve the Lord's hunt, not to hunt, but to clean, to haul, to cook. These are not favors. They are commands. You do not say no. The Lord's favor is not given freely. It comes with expectations. You kneel when he passes. You smile when summoned. If your daughter is beautiful, you fear the attention. If your son is strong, you fear conscription. Favor is not protection. It is control. When the manor hosts guests, the village pays for it. Chickens are collected. Barrels of ale disappear. Bakers are told to double their loaves and give them without price. The feast is not for you, but your sweat is. You do all this not for reward, but to be left in peace. To be overlooked. To avoid notice. Because in a world of lords, being seen is often the first step to being used. And when the feast ends, when the tithe is paid, when the walls are repaired, you return home. Empty-handed. Tired. Silent. You look up the hill again. The castle still stands. And your place beneath it does not change. A life measured in obedience. You learn obedience not through instruction but by observation. You watch others, how they bow, how they speak, how they step aside at just the right moment. Children learn it young, mimicking their parents, repeating the rhythm of compliance without needing to understand it. You do what you're told, not because it's right, but because it's expected. Questions are dangerous. Independence, deadly. You know when to lower your eyes. You know when to be silent. When the reeve rides through, you stop your work and remove your cap. When the steward speaks, you listen without breathing. Obedience isn't about laws. It's about survival. It's about understanding the unspoken rules that govern everything beneath the Lord's crest. You see a neighbor punished for standing too close to the manor gate. Another for speaking loudly during the Lord's procession. Their crimes weren't written down. They didn't need to be. Disobedience is defined by those in power. And what's permissible today may not be tomorrow. Obedience extends to the church as well. The priest preaches submission, to God, to Lord, to fate. You nod, you kneel, you whisper prayers even when you're not sure what they mean. Because doubt is dangerous. The only way to stay safe is to appear certain. And still, it's never enough. A wrong step, a careless glance, a misplaced word, any of it can bring punishment. You live not in pursuit of joy, but in avoidance of error. You measure your days not in hours, but in how few mistakes you made. Obedience isn't a virtue here. It's a requirement. The cost of peace. The price of invisibility. You do not thrive. You survive. And you do so quietly. The manor feast you'll never taste. You hear the music first, soft, distant, but unmistakable. Laughter follows. Not the laughter of your neighbors, but of nobles and guests whose clothing costs more than your yearly harvest. A feast is happening beyond the manor gates. You can smell it. Roasted meat, warm bread, herbs you've only ever grown, never tasted. The air itself seems richer. You stand on the edge of the village, watching the light from their hall flicker across the fields. Somewhere inside, they raise goblets, break fresh loaves, tear into meat without counting bites. There is no hunger in the manor tonight. There is only abundance. You will not be invited. You have never seen the feast hall, never felt the tapestries or walked across the stone floor. But you imagine it. You imagine candles burning without purpose. Platters of fruit stacked high. Gold cutlery, wine spilled carelessly, Music played not for joy but for decoration. And while you imagine, your own fire sputters. You ate onion broth tonight. Again. A crust of bread, a bit of boiled root. Enough to last, but never to satisfy. You chew slowly and try not to smell the feast in the wind. When the feast is over, servants discard bones and rinds. Sometimes, they toss them to the dogs. Sometimes, they make their way down to the village, not as a gift, but as a gesture. A reminder. And you, like the others, take them. Because pride does not feed families. Because hunger makes humility easy. You return home in silence. You pull the blanket over your children and lie beside them, belly half full, mind drifting toward roasted pheasant and honeyed wine. You will never taste them. You do not expect to. That is not your place. The manna eats. And you endure. Punishment for disrespect, even unseen. You do not raise your voice. You do not raise your eyes. Yet still, punishment finds you. Disrespect is not what you intend, it is what others perceive. And in a world of lords and power, perception is everything. A delay in bowing, a glance held too long, a word spoken too quickly. All can be twisted. All can become offense. You've seen it happen. A man laughed during a procession. He claimed it was a cough, a joke from a friend. But the steward did not ask questions. The man was dragged to the manor, and his family didn't see him again for 3 days. When he returned, he walked with a limp. Another wore green on a feast day, the color reserved for the Lord's family. She said she didn't know, but she was made to scrub the manor steps for a week while the villagers watched. They called it leniency. There is no rulebook, no warning. Only the memory of past punishments, and the quiet lessons they leave behind. You learn quickly, speak softly, move slowly, avoid notice. There is no safety in boldness. Only risk. Even your silence can be seen as mockery. Even your honesty, as insolence. And once you've been marked as disrespectful, there is no defense. Your word means little. Your place means less. So you practice humility. Not because it is good, but because it is safe. You train your body to bend, your tone to please. You live each moment as if under inspection. Because in truth, you are. And the punishment, when it comes, is always more than the crime. Guardians or enforcers, the Lord's soldiers. They ride through the village in armor, their faces hidden behind steel or shadow. You hear them before you see them, the clink of chainmail, the stomp of horseshoes. And when you do see them, you move aside. Everyone does. No one challenges them, no one meets their eyes. Because they are not here to protect. They are here to remind. The Lord's soldiers are not part of the village. They don't know your names. They don't care about your lives. Their orders come from above, and their presence is enough. When they pass, conversations stop. Doors close. Children disappear indoors. Silence returns. Sometimes they collect taxes. Sometimes they escort the steward. Other times, they do nothing at all. But even then, they are doing something. They are watching. You remember when a soldier struck a man for not bowing fast enough. Or when they entered a home without knocking, looking for a thief no one had seen. They left with no explanation, only broken furniture and frightened eyes. You've heard the stories, some true, some not. A soldier who took a woman's bread and left her with nothing. One who killed a dog for barking. Another who dragged a boy from the field and pressed him into service. There is no recourse. You cannot complain. You cannot resist. The law wears armor. And it answers to itself. And yet, these are the ones said to protect you. From raiders, from bandits, from beasts. But those threats are far away. This one lives just up the road. So you step aside. You lower your head. You let them pass. And when the clink of steel fades, you breathe again. Bound to the land, you can't leave. You've never traveled more than a few miles from your village. Not because you don't want to, but because you can't. You are tied to the land, not by fences or chains, but by something deeper. Duty, debt, expectation. To leave would be to abandon your work, your place, your role in a system older than memory. The fields you till are not your own. The animals you feed belong to the manor. Even your home, your tools, your time. All of it is part of a bargain written not in ink but in generations. Your father served this land. His father before him. And so must you. If you were to disappear, someone would come looking. Not to bring you home, but to punish. To replace. To make an example. No peasant leaves without leave. And leave is never given. You've heard of men who tried. One fled to another shire. He was caught before the week's end. Another joined a traveling band of laborers. He was beaten, branded, and dragged back. His punishment was public. No one tried again for a long time. The law says you are bound to serve. You owe your strength, your hours, your harvest. And in return, you receive a place to sleep, a bit of land to sow, and protection. Though it rarely feels like protection. Some nights, as you lie on the straw, you wonder what lies beyond the woods, past the river, behind the hills. But your wondering is quiet. You never speak of it aloud. Dreams of escape are dangerous. Even thoughts, if heard, can be twisted into defiance. So you stay. Not because you are weak, but because there is nowhere to go. The world may be wide, but your place in it has already been chosen. And leaving it would mean losing everything. The inheritance you'll never get. In your world, inheritance is not about gaining wealth. It is about clinging to what little you already have. Your father's tools, your mother's blanket, a patch of worn soil passed down not as a gift, but as a duty. These are your inheritance. And even these are not truly yours. The land belongs to the Lord. The hut belongs to the manor. You tend the soil, but you do not own it. You sleep in a house you cannot sell, cannot will, cannot truly claim. When your parents pass, you take their burdens, their taxes, their expectations, but not their name, not their place. If the Lord wishes, he may reassign your field. If the steward decides, your hut may go to another. You live at their mercy, and mercy is rare. Some hope for favor. They work harder, smile wider, kneel deeper, thinking perhaps the Lord will grant them permanence. But permanence is not for people like you. You are replaceable. Your bloodline matters only until the crops are weighed. There are tales of noble sons inheriting acres, castles, titles. You tell those tales to your children as if they are fantasy. Because to you, they are. Your legacy is sweat. Your monument, a broken back. Your hope, that your children may serve as you did, quietly, without notice. This is what inheritance means here. Not gain. Not freedom. Just continuity in survival. Living below the crest. No name, no voice. You wake each morning in the shadow of a banner that bears no symbol of your own. The Lord's crest flies above your village, stitched into cloaks, carved into stone, painted on carts. It is a name you serve but do not belong to. A power that commands your silence. Your own name carries no weight. It does not open doors. It does not grant pardon or protection. You are a body among many, a laborer with no signature. Even in birth records, you're listed by your father's trade, not your dreams. You are someone's son, someone's tenant, someone's burden. Never simply yourself. You watch decisions being made about the land, about the harvest, about who may wed whom, and you are not consulted. You are not considered. You are affected, but never invited. Even your prayers are spoken through the voices of others. The priest leads. The steward commands. The Lord signs. You live life below the crest. Beneath the carvings, beneath the decisions, beneath the rules. You may not enter the hall without invitation. You may not speak without permission. Your voice is not forbidden, but ignored. You know better than to raise it. In the stories nobles tell, your kind exists only to serve or suffer. In their eyes, you are simple, predictable, replaceable. Your joys, your fears, your history, none of it matters beyond your function. Still, you carry on. You patch your walls. You mend your tools. You teach your children what you know, how to survive by staying unseen, by bending without breaking, by learning the rules without ever dreaming of changing them. You exist in the margins of power. Not as a threat, not as a voice, but as a presence. Always there, always silent. You live beneath the crest. And no one ever asks you what it means to carry that weight. 7. Illness, superstition, and painful cures. The first cough, sickness in a cold hut. It begins in the stillness of night. A sound, soft, but wrong. Not the creak of timber or the hiss of wind through cracks, but something human. A cough, quick, harsh, then another. You stir in the straw beside the fire's ashes, and the chill that clings to your skin deepens. You know that sound. You've heard it before, and you know what comes next. In a medieval hut, illness does not knock. It enters silently, like cold air or creeping rot. It is patient, but persistent, and it always finds a way in. You feel the warmth of the blanket against your chest and the cold around your feet. You dare not rise. Not yet. The coughing continues. It is your mother this time. Or your brother. It doesn't matter. When one coughs, all will follow. The fire died early. There was little wood left. No one wanted to rise in the dark to tend it. Now, the room is cold and full of damp air, the kind that invites sickness to stay. Your throat aches slightly. Not pain, not yet, but something. You turn on the straw, careful not to disturb the others. You listen. Another cough. Then two. Someone shifts and groans. The baby whimpers. There will be no true sleep now. Morning comes slow. A grey light filters through the shutter cracks. Your father stirs. He rubs his chest. The coughing is worse. You smell it now. Something sharp, sour, wrong. Illness carries its own scent here. Breakfast is quiet. Thinner porridge than usual. No one eats much. The air inside the hut feels thick. You open the door to let in light, but the air outside is no kinder. Damp, cold, and unwelcoming. You go to the well for water, the bucket creaking as it lowers. You watch the ripples below and think of nothing. Because to think of illness is to invite fear. And fear makes it worse. So you draw water, and you walk back slowly, your feet numb in the frost. Inside, the coughing continues. The straw bedding is pulled tighter. Someone has begun to shiver. They say sweat is good. It breaks the fever. But you've seen people sweat and still not rise. You say nothing. There are no doctors here. Only the herbal woman, old Mina, and she asks for eggs in return. You have none. So you gather what herbs remain from last season. Dried thyme, withered garlic, a pinch of yarrow. You brew a tea. Bitter, earthy, unhelpful. By evening, the fire is lit again, and you sit in silence. Listening. The cough grows deeper. A rattle now. You've heard that sound before. It means the lungs are thick. It means the body is drowning slowly from within. You press a damp cloth to your sister's forehead. She doesn't flinch. Her skin is too warm. There are no candles, only firelight. Shadows dance on the wall. You try to sleep. You can't. You listen. You wait. And the coughing continues. In the medieval hut, illness is not an event. It is a presence. It arrives quietly, but it does not leave quietly. You know this will be a long night, and likely not the last. Healers, herbs, and hope that hurts. There is no doctor here. No clinic. No hospital beds or clean linens. There is only old Mina, who walks with a cane and smells of crushed sage and ash. She knows the ways of plants, they say. Knows the secrets of the woods. Some call her healer. Some call her witch. But when someone falls sick, they call for her all the same. You knock at her door early in the morning. Her roof leaks. Her walls are covered in drying bundles. Rosemary, lavender, nettles, thyme. A crow sits on her lintel and watches you without blinking. You hold a bundle of eggs and a folded cloth. It's all you have to offer. She takes them without a word. What is it? She asks. You tell her of the cough. The fever. The rattling breath. She nods, already reaching for her pouch. She hands you a mix, dried elderflower, licorice root, bits of bark. Boil this 3 times a day. You ask if it will help. She says, it might. You walk back quickly, holding the pouch like a treasure. But inside, doubt walks with you. You've done this before. So has she. Sometimes it helps. Sometimes it doesn't. The herbs are bitter. The child spits it out. You coax, you bribe, you plead. She drinks. Then throws up. You start again. Old Mina visits that night. She lays her hands on your sister's brow. Her fingers are cool. Her eyes, unreadable. She mixes a poultice. Tells you to rub it on the chest. You do. The scent fills the room. Camphor, mustard seed, warm honey. The next day is worse. The cough grows deeper. Mina returns. She burns sage in a bowl, letting the smoke curl toward the beams. She mutters something, not a prayer, not a spell, just sounds. Your mother watches with worry, your father with doubt. Herbs are all you have. So you keep boiling. You keep hoping. And each day, you wonder, is this help? Or is it the illusion of help? The sick room is quiet now. The tea brews slowly. The hope grows thin. And yet, there is nothing else to try. When the church prescribes your cure. The church stands at the heart of the village. A tall stone building with a heavy wooden door and stained glass windows that catch the morning light in colors you rarely see anywhere else. To the villagers, it is both a refuge and a place of judgment, a beacon of hope and a reminder of their smallness. When sickness visits the hut, the priest's arrival is both a blessing and a burden. His heavy robes brush the dusty floor as he steps inside, the scent of incense trailing behind him like a whisper of the divine. His eyes, solemn and steady, scan the room as he approaches the sick, his hands ready to offer a blessing that carries the weight of heaven and the fear of hell. The priest speaks softly in Latin, a language only he and the learned understand fully. His prayers rise in a steady chant, filling the cramped space with sound that seems to press against the damp walls. You listen, not understanding the words, but feeling their power nonetheless. His rituals are as much about faith as medicine. The sick are told to confess sins, to kneel and pray, to fast and endure spiritual cleansing. The line between physical illness and spiritual failing blurs. To be ill is often seen as punishment for wrongdoing, a test of faith, or a mark of possession. You watch as the priest dips his fingers in holy water and makes the sign of the cross above the patient's forehead, tracing invisible lines meant to keep evil at bay. He sprinkles blessed oil on the chest, whispering blessings that mingle with the scent of burning candles and dried herbs. Yet, the priest warns of dangers beyond the sickness itself. Herbal remedies, potions made in secret, charms woven in shadows. These are whispered to be tools of the devil, temptations that draw the faithful away from God's healing grace. To seek such cures is to risk condemnation, and the priest's voice carries the weight of eternal judgment. You feel the tension between hope and fear in the room. Every gesture, every word, is loaded with meaning. The ritual is slow, methodical, a dance between belief and despair. The family clutches rosaries, their fingers worn and trembling. Sometimes, the priest orders fasting, days without food or drink, hours spent on knees until the flesh aches. You watch the sick grow weaker, their bodies drained not only by illness but by the trial of faith. Other times, he prescribes pilgrimages, journeys to holy sites far away, undertaken by those too ill to travel, with only prayers and the hope that divine intervention will mend broken bodies. You wonder what is medicine and what is ritual. You question if faith alone can drive out fever or mend broken bones. Yet, there is no other hope. The herbal woman's teas are bitter and uncertain, and doctors are tales from distant cities. The priest's presence is both comfort and command. You bow your head and pray, not only for healing but for mercy. Mercy from the sickness, from the unknown, and from God's judgment. Days pass. The rituals continue. Sometimes the sick improve, and hope grows. Sometimes they do not, and the shadows lengthen. You remain, silent and waiting, caught between the earth's frailty and heaven's mysteries. Demons of the body and mind. In the quiet corners of the village, where sunlight barely reaches, whispers travel swiftly. Illness is often blamed not on nature or chance, but on dark forces, demons, spirits, and curses that twist flesh and mind alike. To the villagers, sickness is never purely physical. It is a battle between good and evil, between the seen and unseen. When someone falls ill with fever, convulsions, or madness, the whispers begin. Possessed, they say. Touched by demons. Eyes dart suspiciously toward the afflicted. They speak in hushed tones of spirits that invade the body, steal the soul, and bring ruin. You watch the fearful glances cast at a neighbor whose mind has fractured under the strain of pain. She talks to shadows, screams at invisible foes, and sometimes lapses into silence so deep it chills the heart. Families hide these troubles, fearing both the sickness and the suspicion. The priest warns the villagers of the dangers lurking within and without. He speaks of evil spirits, of temptation, of the devil's hand at work. He urges prayers, exorcisms, and vigilance. His words offer comfort to some, but strike fear in others. Sometimes, the afflicted are taken to the church for rites meant to purge the demons. These are solemn, heavy ceremonies. Candles flicker in the dark, holy water is sprinkled, and sacred chants fill the air. The priest's voice rises and falls, calling on divine power to reclaim the lost soul. Families pray for the release of their loved ones, hoping that faith will conquer the darkness within. Yet, the fear remains, of the illness, of the unknown, and of the stigma that may follow. To be marked by demons is to be cast aside. The afflicted may be shunned, locked away, or left to wander the edges of the village. They become cautionary tales, warnings whispered to children in the night. You wonder at the line between madness and possession, between sickness and sin. In this world, the two are inseparable. And you pray, silently, that you never cross that line. Bloodletting, leeching, and the art of drainage. In medieval times, the human body was thought to be governed by four humours: blood, phlegm, black bile, and yellow bile. When these humours were out of balance, illness followed. To restore harmony, the remedy often involved removing blood, believed to carry the excess and poison that caused sickness. Bloodletting was common. The local barber surgeon, sometimes the only doctor around, carried sharp blades and cups. You would watch with fear and fascination as they cut into the skin or tied a tight band above the arm to force blood to pool before slicing the vein. The sight of bright blood spilling onto cloth was unsettling, but it was said to bring relief. Leeches, small and slimy creatures, were sometimes used. They were placed on the skin, their jaws biting gently but firmly, drawing blood slowly. People believed leeches sucked away the sickness itself. The process was slow and uncomfortable, but better than a deeper cut. Leeches were precious, not easily found, and sometimes traded at high cost. Sometimes, doctors drained other fluids, pus from abscesses, or fluid from swollen joints. It was a crude practice, often painful and risky. Infection was common, and death not unusual. Yet, people accepted these risks because the alternative was worse. The process was not without ritual. The barber might recite prayers or perform a blessing over the patient. The tools were kept clean with wine or vinegar, but sanitation as we know it did not exist. After the procedure, patients were encouraged to rest, drink broths, and avoid cold or wet air. Families prepared for the worst, watching their loved ones grow weaker from blood loss even as they hoped for recovery. Some believed these methods drained life itself. Others swore by their efficacy. You see the swollen arm of a neighbor after bloodletting, the dark bruises forming like a map of suffering. You hear the quiet sobs of a child afraid of the leeches. You sense the tension between science and superstition, between hope and fear. Despite the pain and danger, these practices were among the few available, a grim promise of relief in a harsh world. And so, blood was drawn, sometimes with healing intent, sometimes with desperate hope. The plague arrives without mercy. It came silently, creeping through towns and villages, carried on the backs of rats and the wings of fleas. The plague was a shadow darker than any night, colder than the winter wind, and more feared than the fiercest enemy. It did not discriminate, sparing neither rich nor poor, young nor old. When the first signs appeared, swollen lymph nodes, fever, chills, the villagers were helpless. There was no understanding of germs or contagion. Only superstition and fear. People whispered of curses and divine wrath. They sealed their doors and prayed for mercy that seemed slow to come. Those who fell ill were often isolated, left alone in their huts or sent to plague pits. The sick were abandoned by friends and family, shunned as if they carried a death sentence beyond their own. You see the empty homes, the sudden silence in once lively streets, and the shadows of those lost. The church tried to offer solace, holding mass and prayers, but the toll was too great. The priests themselves fell ill, leaving the community bereft of spiritual guidance. Holy water and blessings did little to stop the relentless spread. Mass graves were dug hastily outside the village. The stench of death hung heavy in the air. You hear the cries of those left behind, grief mixed with fear, and the growing sense of despair. The plague was more than a disease. It was a reckoning. It exposed the fragility of life, the limits of faith, and the harshness of existence. It reshaped villages, emptied homes, and changed the course of history. You pray, not just for the sick, but for those who must carry on. The survivors burdened with loss, the healers stretched beyond hope, the children who will never know their parents. The plague arrives without mercy, and it leaves none untouched. Children and the fear of fever. In the medieval village, children were fragile flames flickering against the harsh winds of illness. Fever was a shadow that loomed large over their small bodies, a sign of sickness that could swiftly turn deadly. The slightest chill, the faintest cough, sent parents into quiet panic, hands trembling as they tended to their young. You watch a mother cradle her fevered child, her face pale with worry. The child's skin burns hot to the touch, sweat beads on the brow, and breaths come fast and shallow. There are no medicines to ease the fever, no nurses to monitor the rising heat. Only the mother's whispered prayers and the hope that the fever will break. Families gather herbs, willow bark for pain, elderflower for chills, and peppermint for comfort. They brew bitter teas and press damp cloths against hot foreheads. But sometimes, it is not enough. The fever rages on, relentless and unforgiving. You hear the soft moans of children in the night, the desperate cries that echo through darkened huts. The village fears the hot sickness not only for the pain but for what it might mean: possession, curses, or the anger of the gods. Parents talk in hushed tones of the crisis moments, when a child's eyes glaze over, when the body convulses, when the soul seems to slip away. They clutch charms and crosses, hoping to keep the darkness at bay. The village healer and the priest often visit, bringing prayers and remedies, each blending medicine with faith. Sometimes the child improves, their small breath steadying, their skin cooling. Sometimes, the child does not wake. The fear of fever is not just about sickness. It is about the fragility of life itself. Every child's cry carries the weight of hope and dread intertwined. And every night, the village holds its breath, waiting to see who will wake and who will not. A toothache that lasts a lifetime. In a time before dentists, a toothache was more than just a pain. It was a slow, gnawing torment that could consume the mind and body. The ache began as a dull throb, growing sharper with every bite, every sip of cold water, every breath taken in the chill of the morning. You see villagers grimace as they eat coarse bread or chew on tough meat, favoring the side where the tooth does not ache. Children cry quietly at night, clutching their cheeks, while parents try to soothe with warm cloths or bitter herbs. The remedies are crude. Some pull the offending tooth with primitive tools, pliers, knives, or fingers. The pain of extraction is swift and fierce, but for many, it is relief. Others suffer with abscesses that swell the face, festering and causing fevers, sometimes leading to death. Without proper sanitation, infections are common. You hear tales of those who lost more than teeth, lives snuffed out by untreated infection. You learn that tooth pain is a cruel companion, lasting years if left alone. Barbers or local healers may attempt remedies, applying herbs, rinsing mouths with vinegar or wine, or cauterizing gums. Sometimes, charms are tied around the head, whispered prayers invoked. But often, the pain remains, a shadow following you through life. You watch the village elder, stoic yet wincing, rubbing his jaw as if to dull the pain. You know the toothache is more than a simple ache. It is a reminder of hardship, of the limits of care, and of the fragility of the human body. And you wonder how long you could bear it yourself. Madness, possession, and silent rooms. In the quiet corners of the village, where voices grow faint and shadows lengthen, madness is a specter that haunts the mind and body. Those touched by it are feared and often hidden away, confined to silent rooms where whispers fill the air. You hear stories of neighbors who once smiled but now talk to unseen friends, who laugh at empty walls or scream into the dark. Families keep their distance, ashamed and afraid, locking doors and drawing curtains. The church teaches that madness is a sign of possession, a soul claimed by demons or spirits. The priest performs rites and prayers meant to cast out these evil forces, but sometimes the rituals only deepen the silence. Those afflicted may be chained or restrained, kept in rooms bare of comfort. The village treats them as less than human, fearing contagion not of body but of mind. You wonder about the line between illness and curse, between the seen and the unseen. Madness is as much a mystery as a punishment. In silent rooms, the afflicted wander between worlds, caught between sanity and shadow. And the village waits, watching, but not understanding. 8. The silent struggles of women and children. The first light of dawn creeps over the horizon, pale and uncertain. Outside your hut, the world is still draped in a thick mist, the cold biting at exposed skin. You awaken on a rough straw mattress, stiff and aching from yesterday's labor. Your limbs protest as you rise quietly, careful not to disturb the others who still lie sleeping, your family, who share in this endless struggle. The hut is dim, lit only by the faint glow filtering through the cracks in the wooden walls. A thin tendril of smoke curls lazily from the chimney, a small comfort against the damp chill that clings to everything. You pull your worn cloak tighter around your shoulders and step outside into the gray morning. The earth beneath your feet is soft with dew, the fields stretching wide and silent in the stillness. The land is your livelihood, harsh and unyielding, yet it is the only thing you have. You set your gaze on the distant horizon, where the sun slowly begins its ascent, promising warmth that you pray will last through the day. Your stomach clenches with hunger, a familiar ache that never fully fades. Last night's meal was thin, a small bowl of watery porridge, barely enough to quell the emptiness. There was no bread to be had, no meat, no fresh vegetables beyond what the earth grudgingly yields. Hunger is a constant companion, shadowing every step you take. Despite the cold, the work must begin. Tools worn and battered from use rest against the hut's wall. A wooden hoe, a sickle with a dull blade, a basket for gathering. Your hands are cracked and calloused, the skin rough from the endless toil. You pick up the hoe and begin to till the soil, turning it slowly, trying to coax life from the hard ground. Neighbors emerge from their homes, nodding silently as they join the fields. The village moves as one, a quiet procession of labor, faces drawn tight with concentration and fatigue. Words are scarce. The burden of survival leaves little room for talk. You pause to wipe the sweat from your brow, though the air is cold. Your breath forms clouds that drift away on the light breeze. Every movement aches, muscles stiff from the unending strain. Yet you continue, driven by a simple will to endure. The fields are a patchwork of brown and green, some parts fertile, others barren. You know the best patches, the places where the earth hides its secrets. You plant seeds carefully, knowing that only a few will survive the harsh seasons to come. As the sun climbs higher, the village becomes a tapestry of shadows and light. The air is filled with the sounds of labor, the scraping of tools, the thud of feet, the occasional murmur of a child. Yet beneath these noises is an undercurrent of quiet despair. Lunch is a brief pause, a handful of stale bread, a piece of cheese, maybe a turnip if fortune allows. You eat quickly, conserving energy, always mindful of the hours still ahead. The afternoon drags on, relentless. The cold seeps into your bones. The earth resists your efforts. You trade stories and glances with your neighbors, silent acknowledgments of shared hardship. Evening brings no respite. The The sun dips low, casting long shadows over the village. You return home, muscles aching, heart heavy. The fire crackles weakly in the hearth, and the meal is sparse. Yet in the quiet moments before sleep, you find a flicker of hope. The hope that tomorrow will bring better fortune, that the land will yield, that life will continue. And so you prepare to face another day. 9. A church that sees everything. The air changes slowly, almost imperceptibly, but the villagers know the signs well. The first frost arrives quietly, slipping in under the cover of night, painting the grass and leaves with a delicate white. It is a quiet warning, whispered by the earth, that the long, cold season is coming. You wake early and step outside, the ground crisp beneath your feet. The breath of the village rises in misty clouds, mingling with the faint glow of dawn. The trees stand bare, their branches trembling under the weight of frost like fragile glass. The fields, once green and alive, now hold the stiff outlines of plants touched by the cold. The frost bites with a sharpness that is both beauty and threat. You see it on your neighbor's window, a delicate lace of ice that catches the light and shimmers briefly before fading with the sun's first warmth. But the warmth is fleeting, a promise broken as the days grow shorter and the chill deepens. You watch as the village prepares, gathering what remains of the harvest, stacking wood, sealing cracks in doors and windows. The frost is a reminder that the work is not done, that survival depends on foresight and endurance. Children play briefly in the cold, their laughter carrying over the fields, but even their joy is tinged with the knowledge that the frost will soon bring darker days. Elders speak softly of winters past, harder, longer, colder, tales carried in their eyes and wrinkles. The frost is not just a season's change. It is a turning point, a moment when the village holds its breath, bracing for what lies ahead. You feel it too, the weight of the coming cold, the quiet fear, and the stubborn hope that, despite everything, you will endure. The coming cold means more than biting air and frosted fields. It means fire. Fire that warms homes, cooks scant meals, and offers a fragile shield against the darkness. But fire requires fuel, and fuel is precious. The villagers know this truth all too well. As the frost settles, a quiet urgency spreads. Men and women, young and old, set out into the nearby woods with axes and carts, seeking wood to stack and dry. The forest, once a place of mystery and shadow, becomes a vital source of life. You join them, the weight of an axe heavy in your hands, the sharp scent of pine and earth filling your lungs. Each tree felled is a small victory, a promise of warmth against the coming nights. But the work is hard, the air cold and biting, fingers stiff with cold even beneath thick gloves. Wood is not plentiful. The best logs are already claimed, and the forest feels emptier with every visit. You know that the winter will be long, and the woodpile must last. You stack carefully, layering branches and logs in neat piles, protected under tarps or in sheds if you're lucky. At home, the fire pit is cleaned and prepared. You gather kindling, dry leaves, twigs, bark, fragile sparks waiting to catch flame. The hearthstones are cold and blackened from seasons past. Lighting the fire will be a ritual, one that marks the turning of the year. Without fire, the cold would seep into bones and spirit. Food would spoil faster, water freeze, and sickness find easier prey. The crackle of flames is more than sound, it is hope. As evening falls and darkness blankets the village early, families huddle close to their fires. The warmth draws stories, song, and quiet prayers. It is a small comfort, but a crucial one. You know that the fire will not last forever, that the woodpile will dwindle, that the frost will return, harsher than before. But for now, it burns bright. As the frost deepens and nights grow longer, the village's simple huts become battlegrounds against the cold. Walls made of timber and mud struggle to hold warmth inside, while icy drafts creep through every crack and crevice. Shelter, once a refuge, becomes a constant challenge. You return to your hut as the sun dips below the horizon, the cold already biting at exposed skin. Inside, the air is damp and chilly, even with a fire burning low in the hearth. You gather straw and old blankets, patching gaps in walls and windows with whatever you can find. Bits of cloth, mud, and leaves, desperate to seal out the night. Your fingers are numb as you work, but you press on. The children shiver in the corner, wrapped in thin garments that offer little protection. You try to keep their spirits up with whispered stories and soft songs, though your own heart aches at the sight. The firewood burns quickly, and the flames flicker, casting dancing shadows that seem to mock your efforts. You know that when the fire dies, the cold will rush back in, relentless and unforgiving. You huddle close to others when you can, sharing warmth, breathing warmth, hoping to stave off the chill. The village becomes a tapestry of small, flickering fires, each one a fragile island of heat in the gathering darkness. Sleep is elusive. The cold seeps into bones and dreams alike, wrapping you in a numbness that dulls pain but sharpens fear. You dream of warmer days, of sunlit fields and gentle breezes, and wake to the harsh reality of frost-bitten mornings. The struggle to stay warm is unending. It is a test of endurance, of ingenuity, of will. Every day, every night, you fight the cold with whatever means you have, for yourself, for your family, for the hope of spring. And though the cold presses hard, you press harder. The frost thickens over the fields, transforming the earth into a frozen expanse that refuses to yield. Crops that once promised life now lie brittle and broken beneath icy fingers. The land that feeds the village becomes a harsh, unyielding force, silent but deadly. You walk the fields in the early light, your breath fogging in the cold air. The soil crunches underfoot, hard and unforgiving. Where once seeds were sown and nurtured, only frostbitten stalks remain. The promise of a harvest slips further from reach with each passing day. The livestock, too, suffer the merciless grip of winter. Cattle and sheep huddle together for warmth, their breaths forming clouds in the frigid air. Food grows scarce as grasses die back, and the animals grow thin, their ribs visible beneath coarse fur. You watch a neighbor feed his herd with what little hay remains, the ration carefully measured. A lamb shivers nearby, its legs weak, eyes clouded with hunger. The old ox, once strong and steady, now moves slowly, burdened by the cold and lack of sustenance. The village talks quietly of losses, animals that won't survive, of future shortages and rising fears. Every mouth to feed, every pair of eyes to care for, weighs heavily on your thoughts. You help haul what feed remains from storage, rationing carefully, knowing that every bite counts. The threat of starvation is real, and it looms not just over the animals, but over the village itself. Winter's hold is tight, squeezing life and hope with equal cruelty. Yet, even as the fields freeze and the animals falter, you continue. You tend to what you can, you hope for mercy, and you prepare for the day when the thaw will come. Until then, survival is the only harvest. Winter brings more than cold and hunger. It carries illness on its icy breath. The chill seeps into bones and sinew, weakening bodies already worn thin by toil and scant nourishment. In this harsh season, sickness spreads silently, striking quickly and lingering long. You notice the first signs, a shiver that doesn't end with warmth, a cough that rattles in the chest, cheeks flushed with fever even as skin feels cold. The young and old are most vulnerable, their strength fading under winter's relentless pressure. In the crowded huts, the air grows thick with breath and worry. Families huddle close, sharing warmth but also sharing the invisible threat. Illness feels like a shadow moving from one to another, impossible to escape. There are few remedies. Old Mina's herbs offer small comfort, but the cold is crueler than any sickness she can soothe. The priest's prayers bring solace, but no cure. The healer's hands are often full, their visits frequent and hurried. You watch as neighbors weaken, as coughs deepen into wheezes, as fevers climb higher. The quiet desperation settles over the village like snow, soft but suffocating. Some are taken outside, away from the living, to prevent the spread. Their fate is uncertain, their voices lost to the wind. You guard your own health carefully, layered clothes, fires kept burning, food hoarded when possible. Yet you know that the cold itself is an enemy, invisible and unforgiving. Winter sickness is not just a battle of the body. It is a test of endurance, of community, of will. And you hold fast, even as the chill presses closer. As the cold deepens and darkness falls early, the village gathers around its hearths, small islands of warmth and light in the encroaching night. The fire's glow casts dancing shadows on tired faces, drawing people close despite the chill outside. Inside the huts, families huddle together, old and young, strong and weak, sharing stories, songs, and silences. The crackle of the fire fills the space, punctuating whispered conversations and gentle laughter that rise above the cold. For some, the hearth is a refuge from loneliness, a place where burdens can be shared, even if only through the company of others. For others, it is a reminder of what has been lost: empty chairs, distant voices, dreams deferred. You sit close to the fire, the warmth soaking into your bones. You listen to the tales of elders, stories passed down of winters harsher than this, of times when the village nearly gave way to frost and famine. Their voices carry wisdom and warning, resilience and sorrow. Sometimes, the hearth is silent. The weight of hardship presses down, and words fail. You watch faces etched with weariness, eyes reflecting flickering flames and quiet fears. Yet even in solitude, there is comfort. The fire's glow is a steady presence, a heartbeat in the darkness. It reminds you that you are not alone. The village endures together, bound by cold, by labor, and by the fragile hope that spring will come again. And so you sit, near the fire, waiting. The long winter nights stretch endlessly, folding the village into a blanket of darkness and cold. Outside, the wind howls through bare branches, carrying whispers and mournful sighs that seem to echo the village's own struggles. Inside, the shadows grow deeper, flickering and stretching with the firelight. As daylight fades, the village retreats indoors. Doors close against the biting cold, windows shuttered tight. The world grows small, limited to the flickering glow of hearth fires, the worn wood of walls, and the company of those gathered within. Stories rise from lips cracked with cold and age, tales spun from memory and imagination. They speak of heroes long gone, of spirits that haunt the woods, of winters survived against impossible odds. The young listen wide-eyed, their fears and hopes intertwined with every word. But silence also reigns. Between stories, between moments, an unspoken weight settles. The hardships of the day press down like snowdrifts, muffling laughter, muting voices. You feel it in the quiet, the space where sorrow and fatigue linger, where hope flickers uncertainly. Shadows seem to dance on the walls, alive with memories and dreams. You watch faces illuminated by firelight, catching glimpses of strength and vulnerability. The night is long, and the hours stretch like an endless road. Sleep comes slowly, often interrupted by dreams of warmth, of sunlit fields, of life beyond the frost. You awake to the cold again, but carry the stories and silences within you, a fragile comfort against the winter's grip. The long nights test the spirit, but also bind the village closer, weaving a shared tapestry of endurance. And so you wait, in stories, in silence, in shadows, for the dawn. The long winter nights stretch endlessly, folding the village into a blanket of darkness and cold. Outside, the wind howls through bare branches, carrying whispers and mournful sighs that seem to echo the village's own struggles. Inside, the shadows grow deeper, flickering and stretching with the firelight. As daylight fades, the village retreats indoors. Doors close against the biting cold, windows shuttered tight. The world grows small, limited to the flickering glow of hearth fires, the worn wood of walls, and the company of those gathered within. Stories rise from lips cracked with cold and age, tales spun from memory and imagination. They speak of heroes long gone, of spirits that haunt the woods, of winters survived against impossible odds. The young listen wide-eyed, their fears and hopes intertwined with every word. But silence also reigns. Between stories, between moments, an unspoken weight settles. The hardships of the day press down like snowdrifts, muffling laughter, muting voices. You feel it in the quiet, the space where sorrow and fatigue linger, where hope flickers uncertainly. Shadows seem to dance on the walls, alive with memories and dreams. You watch faces illuminated by firelight, catching glimpses of strength and vulnerability. The night is long, and the hours stretch like an endless road. Sleep comes slowly, often interrupted by dreams of warmth, of sunlit fields, of life beyond the frost. You awake to the cold again, but carry the stories and silences within you, a fragile comfort against the winter's grip. The long nights test the spirit, but also bind the village closer, weaving a shared tapestry of endurance. And so you wait, in stories, in silence, in shadows, for the dawn. In the bleakness of winter, faith becomes a lifeline, a fragile thread woven through the cold and darkness. The villagers turn often to the church, the priest, and their prayers, seeking comfort beyond the biting frost and empty larders. You see the chapel's small windows glowing faintly in the evening, the bells toll carrying softly across the snow-covered fields. Inside, the villagers gather close, their voices raised in hymns that echo off ancient stone walls, filling the chill air with warmth and hope. Faith offers answers where the world provides none. A reason for suffering, a promise of deliverance, a path through hardship. The priest's sermons speak of endurance, of God's plan, of the reward beyond this life. You listen, sometimes doubting, sometimes believing, but always searching for solace. Prayer becomes a daily ritual. Hands clasped tight, eyes closed against the cold and fear, you repeat the words taught since childhood. You ask for protection, for strength, for the end of the long winter. Candles flicker in windows, small beacons against the darkness. Charms and crosses hang above doorways, warding off evil and misfortune. The village breathes a collective prayer, each person adding their voice to the silent plea. Faith does not erase hunger or cold, nor does it cure illness. But it offers a sanctuary, a place to find peace amid struggle, a community bound by shared belief and hope. And in the darkest season, faith is the light that guides the way. The snow falls softly, blanketing the village in a quiet white shroud. The world seems paused, frozen in time, but beneath the surface, life stirs, unseen but persistent. The village holds its breath, waiting for the thaw. You watch the snowdrifts pile against the hut's walls, the trees bowed under heavy branches, the fields hidden beneath endless white. The cold is deep, pressing in from every side, yet beneath the snow, the earth awaits its awakening. In these long, silent days, hope becomes a fragile seed, nurtured by memory and faith, by stories told beside the fire and dreams of warmer light. The villagers speak softly of the coming spring, of green shoots breaking through frozen soil, of sunlight warming frozen hands. Children watch the sky for the first signs of melting, their eyes bright with anticipation. Elders recall winters past, reminding the young that no winter lasts forever, and life will return. You tend the small fires, keep the hearth warm, and hold on to that hope, the promise that beneath the snow, life is waiting. That beneath hardship, resilience grows. And as the days slowly lengthen, you wait, patient and enduring, for the world to bloom again. 10. Darkness, firelight, and the longest nights. As the cold months begin to wane and the first hints of spring stir the air, the village awakens to the rhythm of change. The turn of the year is a time both feared and awaited, a delicate balance between the harshness endured and the promise of renewal. Preparations for celebration begin quietly but steadily. Homes are cleaned of the winter's dust and grime, hearths scrubbed and ashes cleared. Families mend clothes, stitch banners, and gather what food they can spare, knowing that the coming feast is more than a meal. It is a statement of endurance. The village square takes on a new energy. People move with purpose, yet there is an undercurrent of joy beneath the weight of survival. Tasks are shared, a net is repaired for the coming hunt. Wildflowers are gathered to decorate the chapel, and bundles of herbs are tied with ribbons. Children watch eagerly, their laughter carrying on the breeze, catching the attention of elders who smile despite the weariness etched in their faces. The turning of the year is a reminder that life continues, that even in hardship, there is space for hope and tradition. You feel the excitement, quiet but real, mingling with the cold air. The feast will be simple, but it will be enough. It will be a moment to honor the past, to celebrate survival, and to look forward to the days ahead. In these moments, the village's spirit shines brightest, fragile but unbroken, flickering like the flames that will soon light the night. The village pulses with quiet energy as neighbors gather, drawn together by necessity and tradition. Work and play blend seamlessly in these days leading up to the celebration, a dance as old as the land itself. Hands once weary from labor now move with renewed purpose, tending to communal tasks with a rhythm that carries both responsibility and joy. Men repair fences, women weave garlands, and children run through fields, their laughter a melody against the backdrop of hard work. The air is filled with the scent of pine and smoke, mingling with the sharp tang of fresh herbs. Conversations rise in bursts, plans for the feast, stories of seasons past, jokes shared to lighten heavy hearts. Amid the labor, moments of play emerge, a toss of a ball, a teasing chase, a shared smile that speaks of resilience. These glimpses of joy, however brief, remind the village that life continues beyond hardship. You feel the warmth of community, the unspoken bonds that hold the village together. In the shared sweat and laughter, strength is found, and hope is kindled. As the sun sets, the work slows, and the village settles into anticipation. Tomorrow will bring music, food, and stories, a celebration woven from the threads of survival and spirit. Feasts in the village are rare treasures, moments when scarcity is momentarily forgotten and tables are laden with whatever the land and hands have provided. The preparations are humble, but the spirit behind them is rich with gratitude and hope. You watch as neighbors bring what they can, a few eggs from a well-tended coop, a handful of dried herbs, a small portion of salted meat saved for this occasion. Each contribution, no matter how small, is a thread woven into the tapestry of the celebration. The hearth blazes bright, casting warm light on faces lined with hardship but softened by smiles. Pots simmer with stews made from root vegetables and grains, their aromas mingling with the sweet scent of baked bread, a luxury saved for special days. The feast is not about abundance but about togetherness. Stories flow freely around the fire, laughter mingling with the crackle of flames. Old songs are sung, some forgotten by time but remembered in heart. Even the children, cheeks flushed from the chill and excitement, partake eagerly, their joy infectious and pure. The hunger that shadows everyday life is momentarily stilled, replaced by warmth and shared comfort. You know the feast will end, and scarcity will return. But for now, the village dines as one, united by resilience, nourished by hope. As the feast winds down and the night deepens, the village gathers close to the firelight. The flames flicker and dance, casting warm, wavering shadows across faces worn by toil but bright with spirit. Stories rise like smoke, tales of heroes long gone, of spirits that roam the nearby woods, of love and loss, and of winters survived against all odds. The elders' voices carry wisdom and history, weaving a tapestry that binds past to present. Children listen with wide eyes, their imaginations alight. Their laughter and gasps mingle with the crackling fire, filling the cold night with life. Songs follow, simple melodies passed down through generations, sung in voices rough but sincere. The songs speak of the land, of harvests, of hope, and of the enduring strength found in community. The fire's glow softens worries, momentarily pushing back the shadows of hardship. In this shared space, the village finds solace, a place where joy and sorrow coexist, where the warmth of connection offers reprieve from the chill outside. You sit among your neighbors, feeling the pulse of stories and song, the heartbeat of a community united by memory and hope. In the midst of celebration, faith weaves its steady thread through the village's gatherings. The chapel, small but revered, becomes the heart of the festivities, a place where thanksgiving and hope intertwine. Before the feast begins, the priest leads a solemn prayer, his voice echoing through the stone walls. He calls upon the heavens to bless the harvest, to protect the village through the cold months ahead, and to watch over the souls gathered in the warmth of community. The villagers kneel in humble reverence, heads bowed, hands clasped tightly. For many, faith is the anchor in a sea of uncertainty, a promise that hardship is temporary and that divine grace awaits. Throughout the celebration, blessings are shared, of food, of health, of the land's renewal. The sacred and the secular blend seamlessly, as songs give way to hymns, and laughter softens into quiet reflection. Children watch the rituals with curiosity and awe, learning the ways of faith that will guide them through seasons to come. Elders whisper prayers and stories, passing down traditions that have sustained generations. Even amid scarcity, the role of faith in festivities is profound, offering meaning, comfort, and a reminder that the village's spirit endures beyond the biting cold. You feel this connection deeply, a thread binding you to your neighbors, your ancestors, and the world beyond. Even in the midst of hardship, the laughter of children rings clear and bright, a melody that lifts the village spirit and reminds all of life's simple pleasures. Their games are humble but fierce, filled with imagination and joy that no winter chill can quell. You watch as children chase one another across snow-dusted fields, their breath steaming in the cold air. They invent games from scraps. A stick becomes a sword, a pile of snow a fortress, the frozen ground a skating rink. Their voices carry over the silent village, a chorus of youthful resilience. Inside the huts, children play quietly with handmade toys, dolls carved from wood, balls stitched from fabric scraps, or simple puzzles crafted from bark and stone. These small treasures are precious, tokens of creativity and hope. Parents smile softly at the sight, their eyes reflecting pride and longing. They know the innocence will not last forever, that life's burdens will soon press upon these young shoulders. Yet, for now, the children are free to dream, to laugh, to live. Simple joys like these weave warmth into the coldest days, binding the village together in moments of light and laughter. They are reminders that even amid scarcity and struggle, life finds ways to bloom. You carry these moments with you, fragile but enduring, as proof that hope lives on. As the village gathers to celebrate, a quiet reverence settles over the feast, a moment to honor not just the bounty, but the generations that made survival possible. The harvest is a gift born of toil, luck, and the wisdom passed down through the ages. You see the elders rise, their faces etched with years of labor and loss, their voices steady as they offer thanks. They speak of ancestors who faced harsher winters, who sowed seeds in unforgiving soil, whose hands shaped the very land beneath your feet. Offerings are laid upon the communal table, the first fruits, a loaf of bread, a vessel of cider. These tokens carry respect, gratitude, and a connection that bridges past and present. The village listens, hearts heavy with remembrance. Stories of those gone before flow like gentle rivers, threading through the celebration with warmth and solemnity. You feel the weight of history, the sacrifices, the endurance, the unbroken chain of lives intertwined with the land and each other. It is a moment of quiet strength, a reminder that you are part of something greater. Honoring the harvest and the ancestors is not merely tradition. It is the village's soul, a thread that binds today to yesterday and tomorrow. And in this shared remembrance, hope is renewed. In the village, tradition is woven tightly into daily life, a fabric made strong by years of hardship and hope. But survival demands adaptation, and the balance between honoring the past and facing the present is delicate and ever-changing. You watch as elders pass down customs, the way to plant, to harvest, to pray, while younger hands learn and question, finding new ways to stretch scarce resources. Old songs are sung beside new stories, and rituals blend with practical needs. Festivals honor ancient cycles, but the reality is harsh. The feast may be modest, the dances fewer, the laughter quieter. Yet, the heart of tradition beats steadily, offering comfort and identity. You sense the tension between what was and what must be, between the pull of roots and the push of survival. Sometimes choices are painful, a celebration scaled back, a ritual shortened, a custom altered. Still, the village moves forward, carrying its heritage with care, but eyes fixed on tomorrow. Tradition is a compass, but survival is the journey. In this balance, you find resilience, a community rooted in history yet flexible enough to endure. And through this dance of old and new, life continues. Even in the harshest times, laughter finds its way through the cracks of hardship. It is a fragile light, flickering but persistent, that lifts weary hearts and binds the village together in brief, precious moments of joy. You hear the quiet chuckles around the fire as someone shares a mischievous tale or a clever joke. Children giggle as they chase one another through the snow, their laughter ringing clear and bright against the cold silence. Laughter is sometimes shy, hiding behind tired eyes or caught between sobs, but it is real and healing. It reminds the village that beneath the burden of survival, there is still life, still spirit. In these moments, the weight of hunger, cold, and toil lifts, if only for a little while. Faces soften, burdens feel lighter, and the future, however uncertain, seems a bit brighter. You carry these moments in your heart, small treasures that sustain you through the longest nights and hardest days. Because laughter is more than sound. It is hope. As the celebrations draw to a close, a quiet understanding settles over the village, that despite the hardships, the bonds of community remain unbroken. The promise of continuity is woven through every shared meal, every story told, every hand held in solidarity. You see families gathered, elders passing down wisdom, children learning the ways of their people. The village breathes as one, connected by shared history and common fate. This promise is not merely about survival, but about belonging, the knowledge that through cycles of hardship and hope, the community endures. Each year brings new challenges, but also new strength drawn from unity. You feel this deeply, a part of something greater than yourself. In the face of cold, hunger, and loss, the village's spirit shines resilient. And with this promise, you face the coming days, ready to endure, to rebuild, and to live.